This is the first time I've ever talked to Alex Smith. I'm pretty sure that's true. Through the ESPN years, you can lose track. But he joins us now, and he's now working with ESPN. He's doing some awesome interviews. We're going to talk to him about that. Also has a new podcast out, The Glue Guys, with Shane Battier and Ravi Gupta. So what's up, man? It's good to see you.
How's it going? I feel like I've talked to you before because I've listened to the pod. So like you do make this connection as a podcast listener. So I do feel like I know you. So yeah, it's cool to talk to you.
It sucks that Cerruti's traveling today because Cerruti is one of your biggest fans ever. And I'll just come clean. I think there was a time where it was like a graphic where it was like, here's the all-time winning, and it was like Brady, Manning, and then Alex Smith. And I would like, whether it was a pre-show meeting or on the air. So if you listen to me, like I just always have to be honest. I'd be like, come on, you guys. Like, we can't do that with Alex Smith. And then Cerruti would just jump in and be like, he's way better than you think he is. And I'd be like, yeah, but what about? So yeah, just in full transparency here, I hate that he's not here because he's been one of your staunchest defenders of anyone I've ever met.
Oh, well, next time we'll have to do it again.
What's this been like? I know it's been a few years now. Usually those first two are tough for somebody who's had a life in football. But what's it been like as you've kind of really fully transitioned and understood like the next chapter of your life?
Yeah, I mean, transitions are hard. They're hard. And the walk away from professional sports is such a unique thing. I'll never forget like entering the league and all you hear is NFL, not for long, right? Like the average career spans, 2 years. And, I was playing as a young, top pick, and it was a lot. Those were like dog years, Ryan. I remember thinking that like, man, if I could ever make it 10 years. And that seemed like that was 1,000 years away, right? Like that was so far away. I didn't think I would ever make it. And then to end up playing 16 years, obviously just so incredibly lucky and grateful for that to happen. But then you walk away, and there were, I had all these interests and things that I'd always wanted to go do that I got to put off. I got to like kick the can on just because football kept going and going and going, and then here's my opportunity. And at the same time, all of a sudden I'm, middle-aged and have kids, and football at that point was always kind of a means to an end, right? Like you're sacrificing so much. I put so much into football all those years, and it was always knowing, right? Like this is going to last forever. So my wife knew it. Everybody knew it. And then you unplug from football for a while and decompress. But you quickly realize like, I can't just play golf every day. Like I can't do nothing. What the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? So just trying to find that balance. And I still feel like I'm on that mission. I still trying to work it out. I don't have the answers at all. I am enjoying my time at ESPN. I never thought I would do TV ever. I don't know if you knew this when I played. I was like the most boring interview of all time. I was like the epitome of getting on the podium and the microphone and just verbal vomit. Like I didn't say anything of meaning. And that was kind of because you're coached, right? Like you're coached to do that. Just don't give them any ammunition. Say less. Is just like walking cliches. And I kind of never thought I'd have something to say on TV. And it's so funny there. I really do enjoy the challenge. Doing the Sunday countdowns now, getting ready for that, like gearing up. There's so many people that have crazy stuff to say during the week that like just amps me up and fuels me for Sunday. So it's been fun.
Okay. So you touched on something like I usually, the Brady timeline for me is kind of funny. We're close to the same age. He came into the league. I was a huge Patriots fan back in the day. I moved to Boston right when it all started, from Massachusetts. And I remember thinking, like, Belichick has the perfect muse in Brady because Brady was just buying into all of it immediately. And, like, Belichick didn't want free thinkers, right?
Yeah, no.
But the part that I've admired with Belichick, even if I didn't love all the interviews, is that he just basically was like, I'm not gonna do anything that you want me to do because it's all pointless. So why give you anything? But then there's always probably like a moment of you getting a little bit older and you're thinking, there actually is a personality in here. Like if I were a player, and you're
totally
saying, and we're seeing it with Brady, but it took like 20 years and now we're seeing it with you. I still think it's the right approach because outside of the locker room, knowing what it's like being in the media, we lose our minds over the dumbest shit that doesn't mean anything. But I do wonder if you ever replay it being like, maybe I didn't have to be like that.
Yes. No, absolutely. So two things, a lot there. Like even think about Belichick and Saban now, right? Like, these guys were like the most stoic head coaches. Don't say anything, right? They were like cut from the same cloth. This is this old school. There even was like the media was, it was the enemy, right? Like even
Yeah.
when they, and now they're, they're all over the place in media, and you're seeing their personality come out. And it's actually been this like very fun experience, and no different with Tom. You know, you and I talked right before the taping, like about the interviews, and this is where it hits me the most, Ryan. Like when I go sit down with these quarterbacks, and I get asked to do this from ESPN, and I get it because it was the same thing. Like when I was playing, like they would send a quarterback because I think they think you'll say yes to the sit down, and it works. And there's nothing worse than I'll go interview somebody who kind of was me when I was playing, and you leave it, and you're like, man, that sucked. Like it just like that was a crappy interview. I didn't get anything. It was like pulling teeth. And then I'll go sit down with a guy like Baker, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like this guy is so refreshing. Like he just kind of is who he is. It's so honest and authentic. And I really love that. And I do reflect back on when I was playing, and certainly the back half of my career, when I probably could have walked the line better on being myself and not providing fodder for anything, like not becoming a distraction to anything. And yeah, so like, live and learn. But I do that thought definitely comes across for me as I reflect back on my career.
I think the problem with sharing more is that if you're not playing well, then the reason you're not playing well, part of it becomes your personality. And Baker's a perfect example of that. Like whether or not you liked him coming out of the draft, you could use his personality as an asset, and you could use it against him. I mean, really, he was probably hurt way more than we realized when he was at Cleveland. There were certain plays where I'd see him running around being like, dude, he doesn't even look right. But it wasn't working, right? And it wasn't working. He goes to a place like the Rams. It's not like he's going to take over for Stafford anyway. But it is funny, and I think this gets back to like a flaw that we have in the media, but I also think it happens with fans, is that now that it's working for Baker, his personality is thought to be this incredible asset. Like it's a great part of his makeup because he's so relatable and all the guys rally around him. He's just a guy's guy. Like I'm hearing he's no different, but the way it's talked about plays out entirely different just based on wins or losses on Sunday.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think, and I battled this when I was really young. And I guess this is the thing I do appreciate about, even Baker specifically. He's not trying to get everybody to like him. And I know for a fact, like if you go back into those Browns locker rooms and the Carolina locker rooms, like his teammates felt no different about him, right? Like that certainly is at the core of a huge motivation. In fact, probably is like the greatest respect. Like you want your teammates and even opponents to respect you, right? Like that's like the greatest compliment, and certainly the outside world is not a part of that. But when you're young and you're a high pick, you want everybody to like you. You want to justify the pick and that you were good enough. And so you're starved for that, and you crave that, which is actually like this horrible motivator. But for sure, all everybody sees are the results, right? Like all everybody sees is the output. So when they see the wins, and they see Baker's, personality, they correlate it, and no different when it's not going well. And the truth is, obviously, one has nothing to do with the other. You know what I'm saying? Like this is who he is, and personality is. This is part of, especially as a quarterback in your leadership role within a team. We all do it a different way.
Okay, so there's a few different things that I could go to off of that, and I'm going to get to all of them. But I want to start on something I was thinking about when I was thinking about your career, because if you go through, granted the team wasn't doing well, right? I don't think it was until the sixth season you played, you had missed one with the injury, where from a one-loss standpoint, honestly, Alex, like I wonder if in today's age, if you would have been the starter year 4.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, I like watching the Bryce Young thing, and I think the leash for quarterbacks has just gotten even shorter and shorter, which is crazy. And like watching Sam Darnold is this like perfect example of this. Never given a chance to reach his potential. Right? Like this guy's gifted and it's in there, right? And he's drafted as a 20-year-old kid to a dysfunctional organization. It's a disaster. And everybody, there's this belief out there that it's like just this binary thing. Like you either have it or you don't, right? That's it. You come in as this young kid, you're a top pick, so you inherently go to a bad football team. You play right away, right? You don't have great stability around you. There's even this process, obviously, for you as a young kid to adapt to a pro game and learn and be able to make mistakes and grow. And that mindset isn't present at almost all teams and organizations. Now, the really good ones, it is. And that's why they're good, because they can develop guys. They can they have a growth kind of mindset. But the vast majority of places, like as soon as you make a mistake and it starts to compound a little bit, you don't have a lot of room for error. And it's like, well, he can't do it. We missed, bust. And that's just everybody rushes to judgment, and especially as a quarterback position where you're so dependent upon everybody around you, right? Not just the other 10 guys in the huddle and your defense, but again, the guy calling plays, the guy building the scheme. There's just so many compounding factors that I think are hard to measure, but all we see is the guy with the ball in his hands out there, right? And when you're the quarterback, there's nowhere to hide, right? You could be a guard, you could be a top pick guard and kind of hide sometimes. Like you're a QB, man. Like everybody sees the stat line, they watch it. Like it's out there. And then to think about Sam, like his first two teams, then he goes to Carolina Panthers, which may be more dysfunctional than the Jets. I mean, this is a team that had Sam and Baker walk through that doors. They've mowed through five or six coaches in the last couple of years. They couldn't identify a QB, if their life depended on it. Look at they've just destroyed Bryce Young. Like it's been a disaster. And so we all rush to judgment. And then, Sam Darnold goes to a year with Kyle Shanahan and kind of rehabs a little bit. Now he goes to Kevin O'Connell and, oh my God, we turn on the tape. And if you're a Jets fan or Carolina fan, you're like, what the hell, man? But that's just the way the NFL is right now, unfortunately, for the vast majority of teams. And the really good ones, again, do it a different way.
So I've talked, like Matt Leinert's a buddy, we live near each other, see him all the time. And we were talking about it once. I was like, what do you think happened with you? And he was like, I was in the wrong system for the way I played. Immediately it was complete, it wasn't even the right fit. And I think people would be listening to this, like, okay, well, maybe he wasn't good enough or whatever. And he's very honest about things. He goes, look, I'll just tell you, Ryan, by year 5, that's when I finally felt comfortable. Right. But at that point, as he knew, as most people know, it was over. It's too late. It's not going to happen. But you mentioned Baker and it clicking for a couple different reasons. Darnold was a draft pick, where as much as I just kind of shrug when it comes to the QBs based on the history, I was like, there's no way he's going to be bad. And now you're like, was I right? And you have Goff, who, the Rams, granted, they felt like they were upgrading to Stafford. They win a Super Bowl, but they still traded somebody they made a Super Bowl with, which, is fairly rare. So I don't know if this is a new way of doing things, because it is kind of rare for guys that jump as top overall picks to go somewhere else and then have playoff success and actually win playoff games. It hadn't happened for a really long time. And now we have this group where it's happening. We'll see what happens here with Darnold. And then when I think about when it clicked for you, you can't tell NFL teams, hey, you've got to give it 5 or 6 years if you're taking somebody this high. But what was it specifically for you when you realized, okay, this is what I need to do? I mean, I know there's probably a really long answer in there, but I think we're seeing it all over again.
I think a couple things happened. I mean, one, I had 7 offensive coordinators in 7 years. And you just never...
Is that bad?
Yeah. You're just never going to get to an advanced level of play pressing reset every year, right? It's you're only in, football 101. You never get to the advanced graduate school level football, because it's just pressing reset and learning a new system and a new philosophy in a new way. And a couple of things, I do think I needed to kind of learn and definitely kind of hit rock bottom a little bit, as far as trying to get everybody to love me and justify the pick. And I was consumed with that for a long time, and finally letting go of that. And focusing on what matters. And again, dude, I do think mindset is such a funny thing, especially as a quarterback, and confidence. And it did coincide with Jim Harbaugh. Flat out, Jim coming in, this is a guy that played quarterback for 15 years. He played for the Chargers, where I grew up. I watched him play. And he was such a great example for me, of just letting go of all that. And
what does he say to you? What does he say to you that we don't hear?
And it's not just the words. No, it's not just, it is that though, because he talks about it. And I've talked about this before. His last words before the entire team took the field were, "Don't worry." Right. And all I did was worry. I'd spent 7 years of worrying, 6 years of worrying, right? Worrying about what they're going to think about me. What are they going to say about me? What are they going to write about me in the paper? What did they boo me? Like all this crap that and again, here I am getting ready to play a football game when you should be like dialed in, man, to the little things, right? Especially as a quarterback. And again, I'm consumed with all this crap that doesn't matter and bad self-talk and doubt. And Jim, again, the expectation too, like I had played for some defensive coaches where I felt like they thought just quarterbacks had this magic dust that just made everybody better, right? Like you just go out there and just it's on you. You got to do it, And I felt like I had to be more than myself, right? Like I had to be more. I couldn't just do the little things. I had to do this extra stuff. And like, well, look, and it was always pointed out. Well, like, look, Peyton, like, look what he's done. He just gets the ball out so fast, and like all these things. And I had never seen up close too. This is part of this. Like, I had never seen a quarterback play at a high level up close. Like, I never got a mentor. That never happened. And Jim finally, like, I think probably there was that. And it was like, dude, you don't have to do anything. Like, you just run the offense, man. Like, that was it. Like, and it was, I remember thinking like, like, I just have to throw the stick route. Like, that's all you want me to do? And he's like, yeah, like, that's the offense, man. Like, you don't have to do anything extra. And I remember this like big weight I felt like was shed off of me because that was the expectation all of a sudden now. Just like, go run the offense. It's the guard's job to block. It's the tight end, like the offense works for you and you just go run the offense. And kind of finally they're like playing well and building confidence, right? And again, this confidence and mindset is such a big part of that. And that was the big difference maker for me.
When you're doing the sit-down interviews, I know you had the one with Harbaugh, and I went back and watched the Aaron Rodgers one this morning. And, there's just, especially with you and Rodgers, the history coming in the same draft class. And then, he waits his turn and then he turns into one of the great quarterbacks ever. I mean, he was so much better with you than most people I would see him in that kind of forum with. Do you notice that when you're interviewing? I mean, you and Harbaugh have the relationship as you just referenced here. So you walk in the room with it. You may not have studied it the way others have, but you walk in with an advantage very few of us have in those settings.
Yeah. And it's, I still feel like I'm learning. In fact, would love some advice, but like, it's a delicate dance because like the Aaron one, right? Like I've known Aaron for 20 years. We're both 40 now. We were 20. Like my first college start was against Aaron and Cal. Like we go back a long time and have remained
friends.
Yes. And have remained friends over the years. Like very much a very honest, real relationship. We're not like crazy close, but like when we see each other, there's a real connect and real conversations kind of about our journeys. And and very much a respect there. But I do realize like now I'm coming in with cameras. Like I get it. I know why they sent me. And I appreciate certainly that, obviously Aaron's a tough, like he's not saying yes to everything at this point. And I understand why I got asked to come out and talk to him. And, I think the fine line too of you're getting prepped from my producers and like, what do we want to get them to talk about and topics and questions and things like that. But certainly my ownership over that. Right. And how I get to certain things and the angle you come towards with them, I guess, so to speak. And then I think the great thing in these, I guess I've realized in these interviews is you can prep all you want. The best interviewers are like great listeners, right? Like in the moment. And you can't just be like worried about your next question. You got to listen, man, and follow up. And, I do think there's, they leave breadcrumbs out there, for you oftentimes, and you got to listen for them to kind of, dig a little deeper at certain things. And so, and again, I think to try to maintain that respect is also at the core, right? Like he and I are still friends, and I'm not going to cross a line. I value that. And so just trying to strike that balance.
Okay. This will be a tougher one. How different were the scenarios for you losing the job to Kaepernick versus losing the job to Mahomes?
Yeah. Well, for one, obviously one experience leads, helps you with another. The cap thing.
You were having such a good time.
Yeah, like, it's tough. I'm like I was like leading the NFL and passer rating and or whatever. And I feel like finally, again, I'd gone through so much turbulent time, all the coordinators and the dysfunction and head coaches. And then all of a sudden, here we go. and I felt like it was worth it, man. I hunkered down through all that stuff, and now it's paying off. And here we go. And the team was so good. I mean, we were loaded, and I was loving playing for Harbaugh and Greg Roman and the entire team. Vic Fangio's our D coordinator, and the core of that locker room that had been through all that crap, that like now coming out the other side. And obviously then to get the concussion and watch Cap go in and roll. And I don't. People I think have a twisted view of those. Like Cap's first 8 games were historic. Like the run he went on there was ridiculous. Through the playoffs,
Green Bay looked like they had never seen anything like it.
They still don't know who has the football. Right. And then all the way to the Super Bowl, and to go to the Super Bowl. Listen, I was a team captain. I still had the C on my chest, right? Like the only time I stepped on the field was for the coin toss. Like it's embarrassing. And to watch that pass me by, it's hard. It's frustrating. And at that point in my career, I still wasn't like totally solidified. At least I hadn't felt like it. And I think it was kind of for me, a pivotal point in my career after everything I'd gone through. As distracted as I'd been, I distracted myself for so long with the number 1 pick thing and the weight of it, that in that moment, I remember like very much thinking like, I'm pretty confident at some point I made another opportunity. I don't know if it's going to be here as a Niner. I don't know where it's going to be or what it's going to look like, but like the only thing I do control is if I'm ready for it, and I'm not going to be distracted anymore. All the noise around the media, me not playing in the Super Bowl and getting my job back and Cap and, all this stuff. Like I'll never forget the media day at the Super Bowl and the frenzy that was. I just wasn't going to be distracted by that stuff anymore, and just was going to put my head down and work for the next opportunity. And obviously grateful that it came in the form of an Andy Reid phone call, which,
what's that phone call like? What's that phone call?
I mean, I'll never forget the first thing he said to me. He asked me if I could run 22Z in. That's like West Coast 101 for everybody out there. That's like day one install. And I'd been in, a couple different versions of West Coast at that point through all my coordinators, and just laughed at it. And I'd played Andy. It felt like I played the Eagles every year of my career. And it was like through the Eagles' good years. And it was a lot of painful memories. I mentioned hitting rock bottom as a player. And it was actually like at Candlestick against the Eagles when the entire stadium was like chanting the backup quarterback's name. And so, I'd always been a fan of his from afar and the offenses and everything they had done. And so he had just got the job in Kansas City, and like jumped at it. Like, Coach, I'm ready, man. And again, everything I'd been through and certainly the stuff, obviously losing my job, it really does make you grateful for the opportunity, right? I had kind of been spoiled as a number 1 pick, and just like the leash I had, right, to make mistakes and still be the starter. And again, like losing it, it was a learning experience, right? I was like, dude, then, how quickly this may end. And that was also part, I think, the cool thing from Jim. Jim was so, I felt like he wanted to play one more game, and I thought, I always found that like endearing when I played for him. It was like, man, this is going to end, right? And like, you better freaking, make the most of it and enjoy it while it's here.
Do you think Jim thinks he could convert a 3rd and 7 today?
I don't know what he would say, but yep. I just threw with him, man. That interview, we played catch. He could still spin it. He's one of a kind. And yeah, I think he could go. He could definitely go convert. Yeah, one more play.
I know. Next time. I don't need to help you prep your interviews. They're fantastic. What's your favorite Mahomes story of him, maybe in his rookie year, when you start the whole year, he plays what in that last game? Was there a moment where you were texting one of your buddies or somebody and you just went, this dude is ridiculous?
There were, gosh, I'm trying to think. Like it's funny. There was never one like aha moment, probably, that it just was this like kind of slow wave that just came on over the course of that season. And certainly by the end of the season, when he started, we had the last game of the year. We'd already clinched the playoffs and couldn't move. We couldn't get any higher. So, a bunch of the stars didn't play, and he started with really a limited. Again, none of the starters are playing. Right, he's out there playing an NFL game with a bunch of kind of backups, and just how easy and prepared he was for that. And I think over that entire year, to go back, like, Pat beat me in the building most mornings, right? And at this point, I was year 13. Like, I was so dialed in to my preparation and how seriously I took it, and I would like how structured it was. And man, and Patrick was just like glue too. That the way that quarterback roomed everywhere I went, everywhere we went, you did it together. Tyler Bray was the third, and was just like, I mean, from eating together, training together, working out, practice, film, dinners at night with like the girlfriends and wives, like it just, so many things. And the stories are true, man. We'd go to a steakhouse and this guy'd ask for ketchup, right? Like we go out to drink and it's Coors Lights. Like that stuff's all real, and was certainly, I gave him a lot of crap about it. Again, to go back to football, just the slow wave. And it's probably about halfway through the season where, he's running scout team and he's going against our defense, and our defense was good at that point. And stout. And like, I remember he started no looking slants, which is like one thing, it's a 3-step drop. And then all of a sudden he starts no looking like dig routes, like a 20-yard dig route. And he's like, dude, you're a rookie. Like if I were like flash back to my rookie year, like again, my head was spinning. Dude, it was such a disaster. And here's this kid who, starts like humming and the confidence. And I think the vision and understanding of the game to go do that. And again, he was so dialed in when he made that start week 17. I think the little things jumped out. His control of protections. I don't think Patrick gets enough. Like all everybody sees are the trick plays, which they're, jaw dropping. But like, he's so dialed in up front. Like to watch what he did against Baltimore last, in the AFC Championship game on the road, like just dissecting them. And again, every protection, you watch him up front. He's so good. Seeing what the defense is doing, analyzing it, protecting himself, getting the ball out, like just never caught off guard. And that stuff jumped out in that week 17 game, against Denver. So which when I lost that playoff game, what is it? The next week or 2 weeks later, it was very apparent that what was about to happen.
Did they tell you as the season was happening, like, hey, he's taking over next year?
No. It was apparent. We knew how good he was playing, the throws he was making. I'll never forget, like Eric Berry coming up to me like, damn, did you see the throw he made at practice today? And like going and watching it.
Thanks, Eric.
So, and it was cool. We had a good environment then. Like it wasn't, it was such a healthy place. But I knew once I'd lost in the playoffs again, like that was kind of my MO there at that point. Like, hey, great playoff run. Great regular season runs, but, coming up short in the playoffs. And so, obviously I knew they traded up for him and how ready he was at that point.
I'll tell you though, and I had heard this, your role in it. And, I don't know. I don't know if Mahomes starts immediately somewhere else without you, without Andy Reid. I mean, I think he's so special that I might.
Yeah, agreed.
If you told me, like, I'd probably he figures it out wherever
Agreed.
He goes. He's that special. But, that relationship that you had with him, you deserve a lot of credit for it. Because when a guy is still, in the league and he's got some years left and the team spends a first-round draft pick on a quarterback, I don't know that I would blame the quarterback for, maybe thinking about, like, I need to do everything I can do to keep my job. And I know, like, I'm supposed to everybody get along and mentor and do all this kind of stuff. But, like, you have to be a certain kind of person to be willing to do that for the greater good of the franchise and for this other guy that it's not his fault that the team drafted you. Like, I'd heard stories about, back when Rodgers used to still like Van Pelt. He would tell us about, Van Pelt didn't do anything. It's just that Rodgers was very, like, he used to come on with us a couple times because he liked Scott. And I'd asked about sitting behind Favre, and Rodgers, like, this is the part that I do like about it. He just wasn't screwing around with it. Like, he basically let you know without saying it that Favre was awful about it. Okay. Like, just wasn't, which I also understood Favre's position. I think I remember, was it when Mason Rudolph was drafted and Roethlisberger had some quote? We were like, oh, okay, like they're not going to be roommates. It takes a really, like, maybe because everything you had been through, and it doesn't mean you're less of a competitor. I just think it takes a really special combination of a person to be able to help someone that may be replacing him. I don't even know if I could do it. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying I'd be a dick, but I don't know if I could do it. And you deserve a lot of credit for it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think people give too much credit. I think certainly if there's somebody that could have played pretty early, it's obviously Patrick. I mean, maybe he's in the conversation for the greatest of all time. I think a couple things. Listen, my experience as a top pick certainly played a big role in this. Right? Like again, I mentioned it was turbulent. Right? Like, there was no plan. I didn't get to watch anybody. And again, when you get drafted, you don't get to pick where you go, man. Like they just send you there, right? And he and I had no influence over the position we were in, right? He didn't get to pick, I didn't get to pick, and yet we're there. And so certainly for me, I was empathetic about I'd been a top pick, and I understood what that was like coming into a new building. And it didn't need to be that way, right? And I think another thing, again, I mentioned the distraction. I'd spent so many years distracted. Even then, I remember when he got drafted, and again, the media, right? Every time I talked to him, they took your replacement. They moved up to the 10th pick. Well, how does that feel? What's that like? And like, I wasn't going to be distracted by it anymore, right? I wasn't going to look over my shoulder. Here, I knew I had the starting job. Andy had made that, very clear. And again, it was like year 13 for me. You're not guaranteed anything at that point. I knew if I didn't play winning football, regardless of them having drafted Pat, like they're going to go find somebody at the end of the year. And so I knew I had the opportunity before me, and again, determined that I wasn't going to be looking over my shoulder at all. And so that definitely played a big part of it. And I think this, honestly, like if you're pissed off, like to go back to the Brett thing, you're distracted, right? Like if you're so to the point, like every time you see this guy every single day that it's upsetting you, and like you're got this vendetta, and like I'm not going to help him. Like you're distracted. Like you're not doing your job, which is getting ready to play. And then I think that's the other thing about mentorship. It wasn't like hugs and kisses. It's not this like that's not what mentorship is, man. He got
a new shirt.
He got an up close look. It was nothing I said. I wasn't whispering him secrets to playing quarterback in the film room. He got an up close look for an entire year to seeing about. And again, I had year 13, like my schedule, I had down to the minute, right? Like I had 3 kids. I was so efficient with my time and so committed to being the best I could be. And he got an up close look at that. Everything I did, he was right there. And that was the instruction. And that's the way the QB room worked in Kansas City. And that's what makes this so brilliant. Everybody, you do it all together. And so again, he got to take from that what he liked, right? That what fit him. What he saw, how I went about my business. And again, I also don't think it's a coincidence that I had my career year, right? Like as a motivator, like I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. And so that's the brilliance of it. And it's not awesome when you're in it, right? Like it's not that you don't love it, but it's certainly you can respect. And I know I do as a football fan. And again, my journey, like Andy had a plan. Like and not many teams do, right? Like they just throw them out there and cross their fingers. And the brilliance of what's going on in Kansas City right now, that everything about it, it's rare, and obviously it's working.
Last thing, weird isn't the right word, so I'm going to try to frame this better. But you have this terrible injury at the end of your career, and then we have access to your story. And I don't know that I've ever seen like a collective concern. People were really moved by your story. And the payoff of that is it's probably the highest your approval rating ever was throughout your entire career. Like it just felt like a full circle moment where people were like, who was pretty good was out, man, I really liked him. It just, everyone got on the same page because once they learned more about you, it seemed like everybody liked you. And I felt good for you in that moment.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm so grateful that I got to come back and play after my injury, because like the prognosis for so long was obviously so sideways, as they're like talking about cutting off my leg for a long time. And it was all kind of, even though I was documenting it at the time, like no one knew about the infection and how serious it had gotten and where I was at. And then obviously the the E60 airs kind of during COVID before I made my comeback. And so all that did finally get put out in the open, everything that I'd been dealing with. And the feedback, obviously, and support I got, I think, from football fans and teammates and opponents was like overwhelming. And then so to go take the field that later that fall and people understanding kind of the gravity of the situation was really cool, but also overwhelming in the sense that I never thought I'd actually take the field, Ryan. Like I was chasing it, but I never thought, again, my leg is so messed up. Like I never thought it would be in the cards. And so for that to finally, for my rehab to have progressed far enough that it was, it's crazy. And, to run out there, that Rams game when I first played, as the backup, and then I run out there and, getting sacked by Aaron Donald and, on live TV in front of the country and getting back up, right? Like knowing that I'm okay. I'm not fragile, obviously changed my life. But more so, again, I go on to start 6 games. And the freedom I played with, right? Like, again, I never thought I'd play football again. I thought I'd lost it. I thought my career was over. And the gift to get to go back and play one more time, like you said about Jim, like I got to play 6 games. And I played, man, you want to talk about carefree. Like every play was a gift, right? Like I played like it was my last. Like they're not going to let me do this again, right? I would call my wife and tell her that every single game. Like this is probably going to be the last. They're not going to, And I didn't care what they said about me in the paper. I didn't care what anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, so to juxtapose it, to have come, really full circle from how I started my career, overwhelmed with that crap, as the top pick, and then end my career in such a free space, was such a gift for me that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And again, grateful for it. Grateful that I got to say goodbye to the game. I got to go out on my own terms. Those things matter. And, not everybody gets that gift. And again, how lucky and grateful I am for it.
And think about this. I mean, I know you mentioned golf and everything, but what an unbelievable excuse if your wife's like, you're playing a lot this week. And you'd be like, you know what? I could have lost my leg.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
like there's not much I say no to.
Every day's a gift.
As a physical challenge. And that also has for sure changed my perspective the rest of my life, no doubt. But when I started losing on the golf course, I will occasionally just start limping. Trying to
I'm sure
see if I can work another stroke out of whoever I'm playing.
You can see his great interviews on ESPN. And again, he's got a podcast out with Shane Battier and Ravi Gupta on a lot of like leadership stuff, what makes teams work. New episodes have just come out, so they're out every week. And if you have a final plug on, I don't want to cut it short or anything, but if you want to add anything to it, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine.
Yeah, it's fun. Glue guys, we talk about it's not a lot different than this interview and talk we just had, this conversation, and we talk about all kinds of fun stuff. We have awesome guests on. Man, we got to bring Urban Meyer, my college coach, who, just this crazy core philosophy about team building and his, obviously affected my career, and just fun conversations like that between sports and business and different amazing leaders and people. And so it's been a ton of fun. And obviously Shane and Ravi are like, they're unbelievable. So it's been super cool.
Do you want to do your best recruiting story with us before you leave?
Well, I only had one offer. So it wasn't a lot of love for me. I mean, I was like an unrated, no stars. All I wanted to do was play Division I football, and no school thought I was good enough. And my high school running back was Reggie Bush. So we had every college in the country on our campus. I mean, it was like a movie. And, he was so good. And I did a lot of handing off, deservedly. And we never threw the ball, and I couldn't get 2 sniffs. And one school in the whole country thought I could play D1 football, and it was Utah. And man, I jumped at it. And it was cool. Obviously, Urban was not the coach at the time. My freshman year was a disaster. And then Urban came in, and Dan Mullen was my quarterback coach, and we were running this spread option with nobody had seen or heard of. And changed my life. We went on a run, went undefeated, broke the BCS. All of a sudden, I'm at the Heisman finals with Reggie, which was even eerier.
Was Reggie like, what?
He's like, what are you doing here? I'm supposed to be, we all, like in high school, we would talk about it. Like, Reggie's going to win the Heisman one day. And I'm sure a lot of people look at their high school running back who's pretty good and say that. But like, we knew it. No, you like, it was like, no, he really is. And he was that good. And so surreal to like come back and see him, 2 years later in New York. And I was like, I had no business being there. And then, and then he really messed it up. We could have been the first high school teammates to go number 1, and he had to fall to number 2, the total slacker. Messed up a good thing. So
that's crazy. So no one offered you, no D schools.
No. So Aaron and I, like that, for everybody out there, man, that year we were same class. Aaron had no offers either. We went to JC, right? And then he only gets an offer by Cal by luck. They're looking at his tight end. And I think for a lot of kids out there, man, it shows you, right? Like, I still know the Elite 11 quarterbacks my year, and not many of them made it, and so they don't always know.
I'm trying to remember the quarterback's name who had been chanted after the Eagles loss, but I can't go through your game
David
log
Carr.
Here. Oh, it was David Carr.
Yeah. I think they were yelling, "We want Carr." I don't know. It was on national TV.
Alex, this was incredible, man. I can't thank you enough. This was just a great interview. Honestly, you're really good at this. So I'm sure the podcast will do well. I can't wait to check it out. And thanks for the time today.
Appreciate it, man. The feeling's mutual.